Denmark midfielder Christian Eriksen is awake in hospital after collapsing in the Euro 2020 match against Finland. The incident happened near the end of the first half when Eriksen was seen to fall to the ground. His teammates surrounded him as he was given CPR and distressed supporters looked on. The tournament organisers UEFA said tonight that Eriksen's condition has been stabilised. Also on the programme, with worries about a rise in COVID cases, Boris Johnson signals his roadmap for lifting all restrictions in England later this month hangs in the balance.
You've got to be cautious in order to deliver what we want to see, which is an irreversible roadmap.
And the celebration of the Queen's official birthday has taken place at Windsor Castle. Good evening. Denmark's midfielder Christian Eriksen is said to be awake and undergoing tests in hospital after collapsing during his country's opening match of the Euro 2020 football tournament. The 29-year-old, who plays for Inter Milan, received CPR on the pitch. The match between Denmark and Finland was initially suspended, but it resumed after both teams asked for it to go ahead. Eriksen is reported to have spoken to his teammates from his hospital bed, as sports correspondent Natalie Perks reports.
It was a picture that gave hope to millions. Christian Eriksen leaving the Parken Stadium on a stretcher, dazed but awake. Teammates immediately recognised how serious this was, forming a protective ring around him as medics rushed onto the pitch. But fans and players could only look on in horror as doctors attempted to resuscitate the midfielder. As his wife reached pitchside, her husband's teammates moved to console her. English referee Anthony Taylor swiftly suspended. Back in the BBC studio, former players struggled to contain their emotions.
I think football totally goes out of the window right now, and you're thinking about his family, all the rest of the players that are out there witnessing it as well. I actually just got on my phone, I messaged my mum and told her I love her. And I think it's a reminder of how quickly life can change.
That first 5-6 minutes, God, I'm telling you, man, it's horrible. Horrible, Mr. B. It's horrible.
Fabrice Muamba understands all too well what Eriksen went through. In 2012, the former Spurs player collapsed in an FA Cup quarter-final. Remarkably, his heart stopped for 78 minutes. Watching tonight was understandably difficult.
It brought back stuff that I've put down in me. This sort of emotion that just deep down there, I never want to relieve it again. And then to watch it from that distance and not knowing the expectation of what's going to happen, it's scary.
Start the game. Eriksen had spoken to his teammates from his hospital bed to reassure them he was okay. Eriksen is now stable in hospital. Football so often divides, but tonight a continent drew a collective sigh of relief.
And Natalie joins me now from Wembley. Natalie, it was a shocking event. What is the latest?
Alexander Cheferin said tonight that moments like this put everything into perspective. At these times, the unity of the football family is so strong, and he and his family carry with them the good wishes and prayers of everyone. Denmark's coach has been in tears, understandably, tonight after the match finally finished. He called it a really tough evening where we've been reminded what the most important things are in life. Meaningful relationships, people who are close to us. Now, we still don't know the full ins and outs of what happened. The Danish FA's football director only said that he got heart massage on the pitch, and just like Fabrice Muamba, it was the quick thinking of those medics on the pitch that have potentially saved Christian Eriksen's life tonight. When this happened, journalists like me were getting ready to interview Gareth Southgate and Harry Kane. The England captain spent 7 years with Christian Eriksen at Spurs. Quite understandably, the FA asked for that to be cancelled. It would have been very difficult for him to speak to us, not really knowing just how his friend was. England, of course, play Croatia here tomorrow at 2 p.m, but tonight none of that matters. we have been reminded of the old football saying that football is the most important of the least important things.
Natalie, many thanks. Natalie Perks there. In the day's other news, Boris Johnson has told the BBC that there are grounds for caution ahead of a final decision on Monday about the lifting of all remaining COVID restrictions in England. Increasing concern about the spread of the Delta variant, which first emerged in India, has led to speculation of a delay of up to 4 weeks. Here's our political editor, Laura Kunsberg.
Inside the fence, the Prime Minister and his counterparts want to work out how to move on from COVID. But it's still a clear threat outside the gates. The virus is growing again. The Prime Minister's hopes of lifting all limits on our lives in a week are burning under the bright sun. Today, Boris Johnson was not denying there'll be a delay. Can you level with people today and confirm that the restrictions are not all going to be lifted on the 21st of June?
Well, what I can certainly say is that we're looking at the data and continue to do that. We'll be saying more on Monday when the decision comes due. But I think what you can certainly take it, Laura, is that the roadmap was always cautious but irreversible, and in order to have an irreversible roadmap, you've got to be cautious.
If your priority is not having to go back on any of it, then waiting is, you're suggesting, the right thing to do.
Of course, you're right that you've got to be cautious in order to deliver what we want to see, which is an irreversible roadmap. But we're looking at the data today. That, again, you've got hospitalizations up, you've got cases up. There are grounds for caution. That doesn't mean that this country hasn't made enormous progress with vaccination. Clearly, what you've got is a race between the vaccines and the virus, and the vaccines are going to win. It's just a question of the pace.
Do you regret allowing tens of thousands of people to travel between the UK and India, where the Delta variant developed in the month of April? You must regret that.
Don't forget that we put India on the red list.
Very late on. On
the red list on April the 23rd.
At the end of the month.
Before the variant had even been identified as a variant under investigation, let alone identified as a variant of concern.
Big decisions loom at home, but there was full force schmooze tonight with a world leader's family barbecue on the beach. A beer and a pint for the French President and the Prime Minister, even though in the day European leaders had emphasised their distaste at how they believe the UK is not sticking to the Brexit deal when it comes to Northern Ireland. Angela Merkel looked to be happily inspecting the mackerel, but the UK side reckons it's Brussels that's over the top.
To be fair, there's quite a lot of misunderstanding around the EU about the situation in Northern Ireland, and I think that we'll have some pragmatic solutions. And if we don't, it's the prime duty of the UK government to uphold the territorial integrity of the United Kingdom. And that's what we're going to do. And we'll do whatever it takes to ensure that.
But look, the UK left almost nothing to chance in the meticulous choreography of this summit. Forget the Queen or the red carpets, a stunning flyby of the red arrows. The Prime Minister wants nothing less than a new formation of the world's democracies. The commitment to that from those here seems real, but the intricate ins and outs of different national agendas doesn't fit easily into one line. One big ambition, but there are many pilots and a pattern we can't predict. Laura Kunsberg, BBC News, Cornwall.
Delaying the full reopening of the economy will put tens of thousands of jobs and businesses at risk. That's according to the trade body UK Hospitality. Businesses say they are counting on a full reopening on June the 21st to make up for major losses during lockdown and periods of restriction. More from our business correspondent, Katie Austin.
You can dine, but you can't dance. Now, this nightclub can only offer food and drink with table service. It's some income after more than a year closed, but the boss is desperate to fully reopen and not cancel sell-out shows in late June.
Well, we'd lose tens and thousands of pounds of revenue every week from not being open. So it's a massive loss. We need this. This is the bounce back. We're totally preparing to make up for some of the things that we've not had.
Businesses involved in weddings are hoping the 30-person limit is removed.
We make a loss on anything less than 70 guests at a wedding. We are doing them because we just want our couples to be able to get married, but it's financially not viable for us.
What will you do then if restrictions aren't lifted on the 21st of June?
I think we'll probably cry. It's destroying our business. We've obviously moved all our weddings from March last year to this year, and they keep getting moved and moved and moved. So to postpone again would be quite difficult.
The bosses of hospitality venues like pubs, restaurants and cafes are also anxiously awaiting Monday's decision. Right now they can open, but the current limits to how they can operate mean many say making a profit just isn't possible.
From July, employers' contributions to furlough payments rise to 10% of hours not worked, while the government pays 70%. Whether or not all restrictions are lifted on the 21st of June also affects decisions about the return of staff to offices. A lot is riding on the Prime Minister's announcement. Katie Austin, BBC News.
The latest official figures on the pandemic show that in the past 24 hours, 12 deaths were reported and there have been 7,738 new infections, which means on average 6,838 new cases per day in the last week were recorded. Nearly 203,000 people received a first dose of the vaccine in the latest 24-hour period, meaning more than 41 million people have now had their first jab. That's over 78% of UK adults. The number of people who've had their second dose of the vaccine in the latest 24-hour period is over 285,000. More than 29.4 million have had both doses, and that means nearly 56% of UK adults are fully vaccinated. The parents of the teenager Harry Dunn, who died in a fatal crash involving the wife of a US intelligence officer, have welcomed a sign that she may face a virtual trial in America. After the crash in 2019, Anne Sekulas claimed diplomatic immunity in the US. Harry Dunn's parents said the Crown Prosecution Service being cleared to engage with Mrs Sekulas's lawyers to determine next steps was a huge development. Now, for the second year running, the celebration of the Queen's official birthday has taken place at Windsor Castle. The Trooping of the Colour marks Her Majesty's 95th birthday. Our royal correspondent Nick Witchell reports.
In the quadrangle of Windsor Castle, where 2 months ago the military paraded for the funeral of the Duke of Edinburgh, today the celebration of a birthday.
Royal salute! Reeta!
It is the Queen's birthday parade, marking this year her 95th birthday. And for the second year, because of the pandemic, the parade took place within the comparative privacy of Windsor Castle, rather than in public on Horse Guards Parade in central London. Unlike last year's very reduced parade, this year a colour was trooped from the 2nd Battalion of the Scots Guards. The standard was paraded through the ranks. There was intricate drill, closely observed by a monarch who attended her first birthday parade with her father, George VI. Wistful moments, perhaps, with memories of the many years when she would always have been accompanied to this parade by her husband. But this is a monarch who is keeping busy. Last night she was in Cornwall at the G7 summit. Tomorrow she'll be hosting President Biden at Windsor. And, all being well, next year, Trooping the Colour will be back on Horse Guards Parade at the start of the special Platinum Jubilee weekend, when Britain will be marking her 70 years on the throne. Nicholas Witchell, BBC News.
With all the sport now, here's Karthi Gnanasegaram at the BBC Sports Centre. Karthi.
Thank you, Reeta. What has been a difficult day for football. The afternoon game at Euro 2020, which happened before the Denmark match, ended in a 1-1 draw between Wales and Switzerland. Kiefer Moore equalised for Wales to give them a potentially significant point as they aim to qualify for the knockout stages. Howell Griffith reports from Baku in Azerbaijan.
Come on, Wales!
They've crossed a continent, travelled contrary to the official advice. For these fans, Baku, not back home, was the only place to see Wales start their Euro 2020 journey.
It's been a tough 18 months or so, and it's just nice to get out of the country, I think.
The first one is always the most important one, to raise the morale of the team and the fans.
The Olympic Stadium felt sparse but filled with nerves. Wales started by putting that energy to use. Kiefer Moore forcing a fine save.
And it's a terrific save.
Before hitting into some solid defending. But as the Swiss attack started to chime, it was the red wall under pressure. In the second, battling kept believing until bandaged and bruised, Kiefer Moore soared.
It's 1-1.
The nerves returned as Switzerland seemed to score, only for VAR to rule it was offside. And so...
But, I think it's a good start for us. We would have liked to win, but to take a draw from the first game to put us in a good position is everything for us.
Wales will take heart from the resilience they showed at the end, but next week an even tougher task lies ahead. This empty stadium will feel a lot louder and a lot fuller as they take on Turkey. Hywel Griffith, BBC News, Baku.
Football's governing body UEFA made the decision that tonight's game between Belgium and Russia. England's cricketers are on the verge of defeat against New Zealand in the second and final test at Edgbaston. With New Zealand all out for 388, England's second innings started badly with opener Rory Burns out for a duck. England were 0 for 1. It didn't get much better and they finished A3 on 122 for 9, just 37 runs ahead of New Zealand. The first test was a draw. The Women's French Open title has been won by the unseeded Czech player Barbora Krejcikova. It is her first Grand Slam singles trophy, but she does have 5 major doubles titles. The 25, the former Wimbledon champion Jana Novotná, who died from cancer at the age of 49. There's more on the BBC Sport website, including the results from the final round of Rugby Union's Premiership season and news of Sophie Unwin and pilot Jenny Hall winning the gold medal in the women's tandem road race at the Para Cycling Road World Championships. Reeta.
Kathy, many thanks. Well, that's all from us. Andrew Marr will be live from Cornwall tomorrow morning, where he'll be joined by the Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab. That's at 9 a.m. on BBC One. Good night.